No, I'm trying to think. Yeah, one of my earliest, did I ever really notice art on the walls? My brothers made comics, and I was always seeing art being made. And my grandmother was a seamstress by trade, but she worked as a nurse, but also um, made all of her own clothes. So I was always watching someone make things, create things. But I'm trying to think as my 5-year-old self, I don't know if I ever really noticed art on the walls in my home. Just always art. Maybe that's why I do art like every day. Like I've always seen it as something you do. And I never thought about it. Well, back up. I thought about it as a career when I met Maury Turner when I was really, really young. But yeah, I've always seen people making and creating and doing things with their hands. Um, can I ask you also, is there one thing you talked a little bit about the lockdown and pandemic? Is there one thing that you feel like we did as a society, or maybe even yourself during lockdown, at the height of lockdown? Is there one thing, maybe two things that you think we should continue doing as a society?
As a society,
Just
it,
as a collective, as a community.
and the only reason I'm reacting that way is because I feel like as a society, it would be great. One of my memories, flashback, one of my memories is of the way that the world leaned upon artists, whether you were a musician, a writer, I don't know, writer. Yes, writer. A visual artist. Like the amount of gigs that I was getting
Yeah.
missed in the pandemic, the knocking on the door, the emails, we need you, first responder. It was incredible. It was really like hand over fist. Bring that back. You know what I mean? Like, because we are still able to create those things that keep people together. They
Mhm.
just don't remember because they have other things in the outside world. But
Right.
people are concerts, right? Like it was one of the things we want to go back to concerts. Those are artists, they're set designers, all sorts of artistry goes into those things. Come back to the visual artists.
Right.
Where are your budgets now, my friends? Those that I think would be really great, honestly, because we're still here and we still have a lot to say, but the funding is not here. So
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. I was sort of invited to things that I don't think I'd, naturally before would have been invited to because everything had moved online, and then they wanted people who their work could sort of be talked about online, or it could show up online. And yeah, they created spaces for artists, and not only just gigs and jobs, freelance or illustration jobs, but also the way we communicate our art shifted. And so I was invited to things, and I think that yeah, a lot of opportunities came out of that time period. uh, that's
I
we
was
Go ahead.
yeah, I was watching like media, like, or by media I mean like TV shows that were created on closed sets.
Mm,
Seemingly they seem to pop up like probably the production time was like 5 weeks, because like I feel like we went into shelter in place, and then 2 weeks later like a movie would come out and it would be about being in a pandemic, like, and
yeah,
so
for sure.
you have like Helen Mirren, and I don't remember, but like I remember very specifically there was this brilliant thing that I watched. I can't remember what it was called, but it was like this movie where it was like 5 vignettes that these really high name actors, A-listers, were doing, and it was like it was just them in isolation because of the rules, but like each story had a connection and it was all about the future and it had to do with the pandemic. And it's like, that's writing, that's production, that's acting, that's set design, that's all of this artistry and innovative thinking. And I think that like we need that now more than ever.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Don't get me started on that. um do you think, talking about your art and how it transitioned during the pandemic, is there, do you feel like there's been a change to your audience, people who consume or purchase your work, but just enjoy your work? Do you think your audience has changed? Obviously, it probably has, but how you feel it's changed? And
Yeah, I'm really kind of like thinking about that question. I have also kind of like, I've changed a lot personally, and like again, I have less time. But yeah, I think it has changed. It's less of a quote unquote captive audience. Again,
mm,
um, commissions were coming in like very high level commissions that like it was expanding and then it just kind of like dissipated. I'm hoping to kind of like continue to think outside of the box and think about like we're at this very, interesting time right now. Dot dot dot. But like yeah, so I think that right now I'm kind of in this like kind of like resting, like less creating and like resting cycle where I'm like, okay, what's the next thing? Because I also don't want to create more physical matter.
mm,
I'm torn. I'm torn between the rise of the machines and also like creating another thing in this world full of things. But I'm a creative person. So like, I don't want to create for the like, pixels and dots. I like the physicality of stuff, but I'm torn with that like piling material that now isn't going anywhere because there's no money, like kind of like free flowing money for arts. And so
wow.
I don't want to sit on a pile of artwork, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm really kind of torn, if I'm going to be 100% honest
No,
right
that's
now.
fair. That's fair. And I know I recently just took one of my mini comics from an online comic and made it a physical thing because, like you, I want that tactile experience, and I like paper and inks, and I want to feel something in my hands. And I feel like sometimes our audience wants those things, especially in the zine making community. You want handmade books and you want things that are just that are small and intimate that you can pick up and read and maybe go back to in a way that you can't do with online art and online writing. So I'm not really torn about that. I do consider the number of things that I'm making that are physical, but also the materials that I'm using. Are they recyclable? Will they disintegrate? Am I putting a bunch of plastic out there that I don't want to? I recently had to buy, I got a big commission for a couple of my prints expanded into huge dimensions and trying to figure out how to ship them and use materials that wouldn't be like detrimental, but finding these tubes and wanting to make sure that it was recyclable, and it's a whole thing. And most people, well, I shouldn't say most, a lot of people don't consider that like our footprint, making it as small as we can, but then on the same token being artists where you do want to amplify your voice and have an impact. So it's a hard dance. It's a really interesting thing to consider and talk about. And so if you could give words of encouragement or an uplifting message to an artist, a young artist, or even yourself as a young artist, what would you say?
That's a really good question. I would say that there is more to, especially like thinking about myself and my own kind of like trajectory and art ideas about what art was when I was younger. I would say there's more to art and being an artist than like this kind of like the trope, which I think is the word I was looking for earlier, the trope of like the artist that sells work in a white cube and everybody's like drinking wine and like,
Mm,
some dollars. Like there's so there that market does exist. And if you are constantly thinking that that's what being an artist, a capital A artist is, you're gonna face a lot of disappointment. It's harder to crack that. There are so many different markets.
mm,
I think that like, in moving from New York, I went to school in New York City. And then I lived kind of in that, again, in that kind of like city. I lived in Brooklyn for a while, and looking towards like the Chelsea gallery scene and all that. And then coming to the Bay Area, one of the things that struck me as a, when I first moved to the Bay Area is there is a market and a niche for everything. If you want to make mandalas out of used like vegetable skins, you have a spot. Like if you make, you have a spot. If you do dances with local flora, like you have a spot, which is great. And that is satisfying and that can really develop. One of the other things that I really enjoy is being a teaching artist. And you can make money, as an artist with your expertise being a teaching artist. And now I'm not saying art teacher, because an art teacher is something different. There are like like national standards and all of these other like metrics. As a teaching artist, you get to share your practice and help others develop their practice, and that can be very satisfying. And there's so many other ways you can be an artist. So my advice is really to take your time, don't try to develop a style, know, learn how to trust what you see. That is critical.
Yeah.
Use generative AI. And just get your hands in it, and embrace the suck, as I think what was that guy, that radio podcast guy, I'm talking about, This American Life, I don't remember, but
No, I mean, I think that's very valid and important. I really do think that for the longest time, and myself included as a young artist, thought that, oh, artists were in this big white castle making this stuff, and someone would discover me, and you got to get over that. Like you're gonna be in galleries, and that's such an old school way of thinking, and unfortunately, and that's the only frame of reference we had, right? And so it's genuinely, I, I would say the one of the most detrimental things for a young artist is to think that they're gonna just make all this little art in their little silo and someone's gonna discover them. Because most times that just doesn't happen. And
yeah,
that's the same with any art form, really. I mean, you can be as talented and wonderful as you want, but if no one knows you exist, it's just not gonna happen. I think the sort of weird or sort of pipeline in the past was you get patronage, but that's only when someone the history of that is if your family's connected, right? To people with money, a rich family, and you go to all the right schools, that kind of thing. And then you're moved along in this pipeline to go into these upscale gallery spaces. And for most people, I mean, most people make art, it's just they don't consider themselves artists. And so for folks like me that make art, not even understanding, like I said, as a young artist, that yeah, there's all these other ways that you can be successful and find your audience or let your audience find you. You don't necessarily have to be in this, like you said, this white box gallery with your cheese and your wine and
yeah,
and it's just not interesting after you especially I went to art school. It's not interesting when you get inside and realize, oh yeah, this is not it's not that fun, first of all.
yeah,
And like you said, there's a very narrow window that you got to fit through, squeeze through to get into those circles.
yeah. And now more than ever, even in like the time that we were growing up, even in our 20s, I'll say, um it's all smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
Now everything you see on Instagram, like, there is a very like curated image of an artist.
Hmm.
Whenever I see someone wearing really nice clothes, like
Yeah.
painting, I'm like, that's not real. I mean, I don't know. And then also, there's also this kind of thing that I see a lot of the times where somebody's like on the train and they're like,
Right.
turn over like this perfect like oil painting like that. I'm so sorry, that's not real.
Yeah.
um you're constantly comparing yourself to those images. you will face a lifetime of disappointment. And like, there is some a little probably a little bit of truth to the, you know, again, trope that some artists like can like deal with that a little bit of like the sadness, the melancholia, the depression. And that's probably because a lot of us are observing things and really looking and then trying to record it. Like we are sensitive people. So if you're really trying to look at this image, you're going to make yourself sadder. And please don't make yourself sadder, little baby artists.
Right.
Like understand that not that's not real. And if I even looked at some of my surface level accomplishments on paper as my younger self, I'd be like, wow, she must be so happy every day. And that's not true. It's not like I don't value some of the things I've done and I'm like, great every day, but there's so much more to my life that I do not share online because that's for intimates. So like if you're growing up and you've only grown up in the internet age, keep a little bit of that stuff grounded and offline and understand that there's a difference between online and offline.
That part, but also I would say even folks who are sharing quite a bit, it's all curated, right? And it's not even just that they are, painting in nice clothes or the studio is set up just right, or just have this wonderful finished piece in a 15 a 60-second clip. I think a lot of times, like you said, you don't see the depression, the anxiety, the tears. But then you also don't see the struggle of, okay, I'm gonna destroy this because I hate it. I'm gonna rip this up. I've made it 17 times, and I'm gonna post the one time I like it on Instagram. You know what I mean? Like all those
Yeah.
other 17, you didn't see me post those. And I
Yeah.
think I think that's a bigger reality is like even like I spoke about, oh my God, I'm sorry, my alarm is going off. When you talk about, oh God, I'd lost my train of thought. Oh, when you share your sketchbook, this so popular sketchbook tour, and then they show this all these finished paintings in your sketchbook, and that's just not real. That's not real. Like they're flipping through it, but they really did curate that sketchbook. And I've done it where, look, these are all my little ragtag lists. This is my working sketchbook. This has a bunch of doodles and not finished drawings. Like, come on, let's be for real. Like, you can have one or two finished things, or like I said, I do daily drawing for Black History Month. Okay, this is the sketchbook where I did that, but the rest of my sketchbook is just full of junk. I'm gonna show you those pages too. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
just show you the 28 days finished pieces. I'm gonna show you all the little goofy stuff that doesn't make sense, and that's reality. Uh,
Or
and so also, do you have like a daily routine? Speaking of drawing every day, a daily art practice, maybe a movement practice, or just something a routine that you like to do every day?
yeah, so it's those taking those walks, taking those photographs, organizing that stuff so that even if I'm in a non-productive kind of like kind of period, I am building my archive and kind of like organizing that archive. I utilize my notes app a lot
Mhm.
uh, to jot down ideas, whether it's snippets of thoughts, whether it's like a line from a documentary or some other thing that I'm not quite sure how I'm going to use it, but I want to make sure that I'm capturing that. And by research I mean like looking it up. So I hear a term, I don't understand. Oh, what's this? This seems really interesting, or this is a word I've never heard of.
Right.
Look at it, copy the link, put it in my notes app, and it'll show up in a painting maybe a year or two. But I have that, and when I find the right image or this, so I'm constantly kind of like working on that, and that is an everyday thing. And then also leaning into rest when I need it because you cannot go all the time and expect to be creative. So those are things like as I get older that I'm learning to balance and become my daily practice. But I draw or doodle every day. It's just not formal because I have to sneak up on myself. If I say, "Oh, I'm gonna 100 drawings or some," I won't do them because I'm like very stubborn, even to myself.
That's hilarious. He said I have to sneak up on myself. That is awesome. So if you could have, that's a good one. If you could have a dream studio set up, a dream studio location, what would that look like?
Ooh, it would have a lot of light. It would be very accessible. Um, and, probably a garden, definitely a separate library,
Nice.
um, big tables, drying racks, right, to put my little things, huge wall space to tack up because I really want to work large. Um, a kitchen so I can get my little snacks.
Just snack on.
My little snacks. And location doesn't necessarily, but like, yes, definitely accessible. So while like, there is a fantasy of like being in the middle of the woods or like being on like the only thing on an island somewhere. I also would like to invite people over and like also I'm like very like rooted in the practical. So I'm like, how am I gonna get to my island? I don't want to live there. So you know, so I want to like be able to get off of a train, like and like get and walk over and like do my little thing and then like, whatever.
No, that's wonderful. So many people, so many of us artists are like, yeah, I want an art studio, but I want to be able to invite my friends. And I think that's so valuable and so refreshing to hear, hey, we're a community and we want to be with like-minded, people and kindred spirits. So that's a through line. Everybody pretty much almost 100% said, yeah, I want a studio and I wanted folks to come join me too. So, what was my next question? Oh, this is the last question too. So, is there one maybe discovery, art supply, or book or technique that you recently found, or maybe something that you've always used that you would want to shout out into the world?
Ooh. Um, no, I don't, and no, because I literally, as I look around and I'm kind of like looking around at all of like the materials and stuff around me. I use so many different materials that right like I can't think of anything.
Or
I
maybe a
kind of
documentary that you've just recently seen?
not even that
Okay.
because and I will like one of like the funny like kind of like secrets about me is that like I a lot of the documentaries I watch a lot of different TV and I lot a lot of things. So some of the stuff I might share is like, oh yeah, I watched this documentary on such and like and then I'll also spend like 4 to 6 hours like scrolling TikTok and like looking at cat videos and be like, oh, that's so cute. So like it's like kind of like balance. And then also in terms of materials, I really I will say this. Okay. I just something just caught my eye. One of the things that I've been getting into as I think about my love of native plants is I've been really getting into making my own inks out of native
Hmm,
plants
okay.
and foods and stuff. So I'm next time I see you, you better believe I'm going to give you some of these inks because you're just
Yes.
talking. I've been making walnut ink. Every time I see walnuts, some rotting walnuts, I'll be like boop boop boop. Here we're filming this in the fall. It's acorns, so I'm like acorns, acorns, acorns. But like yeah, so I'm now bottling these different inks. I'm gonna hold this up.
Love it.
This elderberry ink and so I've been kind of experimenting with that. So that's one of my latest like these little handmade potions of different inks that I cannot wait to kind of delve into this winter.
What? That's freaking amazing. So yes, please more of that. And so shout out your social media and what you have coming up next.
So my Instagram handle is D is for dilettante. I have been posting again like little stories, occasional art. Right now what do I have going on right now? Um Nothing that I can think of on the horizon right now, but I do plan on spending the next few months really diving into my practice and again thinking about this beautiful Bay Area in which we live and some of the historical ties to the land and native plants. So look at I'm going to do something with that. And
Okay.
I'm like very kind of like very inclusive and very kind of like community driven. So look out for that because I will be sharing and like doing more classes. Shout out to
I hope you apply to Oakland Creates and you can table again because I really enjoyed having you. I think that was 3 years ago, 2 years ago. So I really hope you apply and come join us.
I'm also going to shout out Mighty Mighty Studio in Oakland. Beautiful place. Lots of amazing artists teaching. Shout out to Desiree. So, check those that
So
out.
name that again. I'll look it up and put it in the description box.
Mighty Studio,
Mighty Mighty Studio. Cool.
Oakland.
And give us your Instagram, Facebook again, or Blue
Sure.
Sky.
I have not been on Facebook for a while, but definitely check out D is for Dilettante on Instagram.
Sweet. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun.
Thank-
Appreciate you spending the time and talking with me. Again, we talked a little bit, but not enough. So this was amazing.
yes, thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank
I'll
you.
see you.
See you soon.